The conscription, the day everything changed. Marcus Chen was fixing a coffee machine when the world ended. Well, not the world exactly, but his quiet retirement aboard the colony ship, New Horizon. The 52-year-old former mining engineer had spent the last 3 years tending gardens and repairing small appliances for fellow colonists. His hands, scarred from decades of working with industrial equipment, moved with practiced ease as he adjusted the machine's heating element. The first sign of trouble was the coffee machine shutting off. Then the lights flickered. Marcus looked up from his work just as the ship's hull groaned like a wounded animal. Through the porthole, he saw something that made his coffee-stained fingers go numb. Massive alien vessels, each one larger than 3 colony ships, surrounded them like predators circling wounded prey. The Zephyrian Empire arrives. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire, and they moved through the ship like they owned it. Marcus watched from the mess hall as towering figures in ornate armor herded colonists into groups. The Zephyrians stood nearly 8 feet tall, with muscled frames covered in natural armor plating that gleamed like polished stone. Their faces were angular and proud, with glowing amber eyes that seemed to look right through humans like they were examining insects. Commander Vextar, the leader of the boarding party, addressed the captured colonists through a translation device that made his voice sound like grinding metal. Humans of the vessel New Horizon, you are now property of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has been selected for evaluation in our combat trials. Those who prove worthy may earn the honor of serving in our armies. Marcus stood near the back of the crowd, his engineer's mind already working. He noticed how the aliens moved, how their armor joints clicked when they walked, how their weapons hummed with energy. Everything about them screamed advanced technology, but Marcus had learned long ago that the fanciest equipment often had the simplest weaknesses. The arena awaits. The Zephyrians transported the humans to a massive space station that looked like a cross between a fortress and a coliseum. The central arena was a brutal thing, carved from black metal and surrounded by viewing platforms that stretched up toward artificial stars. Thousands of alien spectators filled the seats, their voices creating a sound like distant thunder as they placed bets on the upcoming matches. Marcus found himself in a holding cell with 20 other humans, including Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the ship's medical officer. Sarah was a small woman in her 40s with steady hands and kind eyes that had seen too much suffering. She sat beside Marcus on a metal bench, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're treating this like entertainment," she said, watching alien guards patrol outside their cell. "We're not prisoners of war to them. We're performers." Marcus nodded, studying the cell walls. The metal was strong but not perfect. He could see stress points where different panels had been welded together. "Every system has weaknesses," he murmured, more to himself than to Sarah. "Even alien ones." Understanding the rules. An alien official with ceremonial scars across his face explained the rules through the cell's communication system. "The trials will test your combat ability, survival instinct, and adaptability. Humans who survive 3 rounds will be considered for military service. Those who fail will be disposed of efficiently." The alien's casual mention of disposal sent a chill through the cell, but Marcus felt something else rising in his chest. Anger. These creatures had stolen people from their homes, torn apart families, and now they wanted to watch humans die for sport. Marcus had spent his whole life solving problems that others said were impossible. This was just another engineering challenge, except the stakes were life and death. The first trial begins. The arena floor was covered in artificial sand that shifted and moved like it was alive. Scattered across the space were various weapons, tools, and obstacles that the Zephyrians had placed for the entertainment of the crowd. Marcus was grouped with 5 other humans for the first trial, a team survival challenge against automated combat drones. The other humans in his group included a young security officer named Tom Bradley, an older farmer named Elena Vasquez, a teenage mechanic named Jake Morrison, and a middle-aged teacher named Dr. Robert Hayes. None of them were soldiers, but all of them had something the aliens didn't expect: the ability to think creatively under pressure. As the trial began, sleek combat drones emerged from hidden panels in the arena walls. These machines moved with deadly precision, firing energy bolts that left smoking craters in the sand. The crowd cheered as the first wave of drones advanced on the scattered humans. Marcus takes charge. Marcus quickly assessed their situation. The weapons provided were clearly meant for one-on-one combat, but they faced multiple opponents with superior firepower. Instead of reaching for a plasma rifle, Marcus grabbed a maintenance tool that looked like a heavy wrench and shouted to his team, "Don't fight them head-on. Look for patterns in their movement." He led his group behind a large metal obstacle, studying the drones as they advanced. His engineering background kicked in as he noticed something the crowd had missed. The drones moved in perfect formation, following programmed attack patterns that prioritized targets based on threat assessment. "They're machines," Marcus called out to his team. "They can only do what they're programmed to do. Elena, can you act injured? Tom, get ready to flank left when I give the signal." Marcus's plan was simple but effective. Elena pretended to be wounded, drawing 3 drones toward their position. As the machines approached in their predictable formation, Tom and Jake flanked them from both sides while Marcus used his wrench to jam the targeting sensor on the lead drone. Victory through ingenuity. The crowd's cheering died down as they watched the humans dismantle the drones not through superior fighting, but through tactical thinking and teamwork. Marcus's group worked together like a well-oiled machine, using the arena's own obstacles against the automated opponents. Dr. Hayes, the teacher, proved surprisingly adept at predicting drone movement patterns. Jake used his mechanical knowledge to short-circuit drone power systems. Elena, despite being a farmer, showed remarkable aim when throwing improvised weapons at vulnerable points Marcus identified. Within 20 minutes, all 6 drones lay in pieces across the arena floor. The human team stood victorious, breathing hard but alive. Marcus looked up at the alien viewing platforms and saw something that made him smile. The Zephyrians weren't cheering anymore. They were talking among themselves, their amber eyes focused intently on the human survivors. The aliens take notice. Commander Vextar watched the trial from his elevated platform, his expression unreadable behind his ceremonial mask. Beside him, General Carthax leaned forward with obvious interest. "The humans fight differently than we expected," Carthax observed. "They use tools and terrain instead of relying on strength and speed." Vexitar nodded slowly. "Their physical capabilities are inferior, but their problem-solving abilities are unexpected. Perhaps these creatures have more potential than we initially assessed." In the arena below, Marcus helped his teammates collect the scattered drone components. His mind was already working on their next challenge, but part of him was analyzing the aliens' reactions. They had expected humans to fight like Zephyrians, relying on individual strength and advanced weapons. Instead, they had witnessed something their warrior culture rarely valued: creative cooperation. Preparing for what's next. Back in their holding cell, Marcus gathered his fellow survivors around him. Word had spread quickly through the human prisoners about their victory, and dozens of eyes watched as he spoke. "They expect us to be weak because we don't have their strength or their technology," Marcus said quietly. "But we have something they don't understand. We adapt, we improvise, we find solutions they never considered." Sarah nodded, her medical training allowing her to see the bigger picture. "They're testing us for something specific. This isn't just about entertainment. They need soldiers, but not the kind they can breed or build." Marcus looked around at the faces surrounding him. Teachers, farmers, mechanics, medical professionals. Not one of them was a trained warrior, but each possessed knowledge and skills that could be weapons in the right circumstances. "Then we give them what they need," Marcus said, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of a man who had solved impossible problems before. "But we do it our way, and maybe, just maybe, we find a way home." As the lights dimmed in their cell and the aliens prepared the next trial, Marcus Chen closed his eyes and began planning. Somewhere above them, Zephyrian commanders were beginning to realize they had captured something far more dangerous than a ship full of colonists. They had captured human ingenuity itself. The real test was just beginning. The awakening secrets in the shadows. 3 days after their first victory, Marcus Chen had learned to read the subtle signs that preceded each new trial. The slight hum in the walls when the arena's power systems activated. The way alien guards changed their patrol patterns, the increase in betting activity visible through the cell's observation ports. Today felt different, though. The energy in the station seemed more focused, more urgent. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had been watching the guards too, using her medical training to analyze alien behavior patterns. She approached Marcus during their morning meal of processed protein blocks, her voice carefully low. "I've been monitoring the guards' stress indicators," she whispered. "Heart rate equivalents, perspiration patterns, body language. Something has them worried. This isn't just about the games anymore." Marcus nodded, chewing thoughtfully on the tasteless food. "I've noticed increased traffic in the corridors. More ships arriving. Either we're about to face something bigger, or they're preparing for something that has nothing to do with entertainment. The true purpose revealed. Their answer came sooner than expected. Commander Vextar himself entered the human holding area, flanked by guards carrying weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. The tall Zephyrian's amber eyes swept across the assembled humans before settling on Marcus. "Human Chen," Vexitar's translated voice echoed through the cell. "Your performance in the trials has been noteworthy. You will accompany me." Marcus exchanged a quick glance with Sarah before standing. "Where are we going?" "To see the truth behind your testing." Vexistar led Marcus through corridors lined with crystalline displays showing tactical information, star charts, and what looked like military deployment schedules. They entered a vast chamber where dozens of Zephyrian officers studied holographic projections of space battles. At the center of it all was a three-dimensional map showing a section of the galaxy Marcus didn't recognize. "Behold the synthetic front," Vexitar announced, gesturing to the display. "For the past 50 years, the Zephyrian Empire has been locked in conflict with the Machine Collective, an artificial intelligence that seeks to convert all organic life into computational resources." Marcus studied the tactical display, his engineering background helping him understand the strategic situation. The Zephyrians controlled a crescent of space along one side of the conflict zone, while the machines held a vast region marked in cold blue light. Between them stretched a contested area marked with symbols indicating ongoing battles. Understanding the enemy. "The machines adapt to our tactics," Vextar continued, his voice carrying a note of frustration that the translator couldn't hide. "Every strategy we develop, every weapon we deploy, they counter within cycles. Our traditional approach to warfare has reached its limitations." Marcus watched the holographic battles playing out in accelerated time. He could see the pattern immediately. The Zephyrians fought with honor and precision, following established military doctrine. Their formations were perfect, their tactics proven through centuries of conquest. But the machines learned from every engagement, evolving countermeasures faster than the aliens could adapt. "You need irregularity," Marcus said quietly. "Unpredictable tactics, solutions that don't follow standard military doctrine." Vextar's head turned sharply toward the human. "Explain." "Your people fight like engineers building a bridge. Everything has to be perfect, following proven methods. The machines can predict that because it follows logical patterns." Marcus gestured to the display. "But humans, we build bridges out of whatever we have on hand. Sometimes they're ugly, sometimes they shouldn't work, but they do." A dangerous proposition. General Carthax approached from across the command center, his ceremonial armor clanking with each step. "Commander Vextar, surely you are not considering using these primitives in actual combat against the collective." "Not as soldiers," Vextar replied, his eyes still fixed on Marcus. "As advisors, as sources of the unpredictability we lack." Marcus felt a chill as the implications became clear. "You want to use us as weapons, but not the kind that shoot. You want to weaponize the way we think." "The trials were never about finding warriors," Vextar confirmed. "They were about identifying humans capable of tactical innovation under pressure. Your species approaches problems in ways our military academies consider impossible or inefficient." Marcus looked around the command center, seeing it with new eyes. These aliens had technology that could cross galaxies, weapons that could shatter planets, ships that defied physics. But they were losing a war because they couldn't think outside their own cultural limitations. Returning with knowledge. Back in the human holding area, Marcus found Sarah waiting anxiously for his return. The other survivors gathered around as he shared what he had learned, speaking in careful whispers to avoid alien surveillance. "They're not testing us for entertainment," Marcus explained. "They're at war with machines that think like computers. The aliens need us because we think like humans." Tom Bradley, the young security officer, shook his head in disbelief. "They want to use us as living tactical computers?" "Worse," Sarah said, her medical training helping her see the ethical implications. "They want to exploit the way our minds work without understanding what makes us human in the first place." Marcus studied the faces around him, seeing fear, anger, and determination in equal measure. These people had been torn from their homes, forced to fight for alien entertainment, and now faced the prospect of being used as tools in a war they didn't understand. The plan takes shape. We have an advantage they don't realize, Marcus said quietly. They think human unpredictability is just about tactics. They don't understand that it comes from something deeper. Elena Vasquez, the farmer, leaned forward. What do you mean? Humans don't just think differently because we're chaotic, Marcus explained. We think differently because we care about each other. We value individual lives. We're willing to sacrifice efficiency for morality. That's not just unpredictable to machines, it's incomprehensible. Jake Morrison, the young mechanic, caught on quickly. So if we're going to help them win this war, we do it our way. We save people. We protect the innocent. We make sure the cure isn't worse than the disease. The next trial. The following day brought a new challenge, one that confirmed Marcus's suspicions about the aliens' true intentions. Instead of facing combat drones or survival scenarios, the humans were presented with tactical puzzles displayed on holographic interfaces. Military situations that required unconventional solutions. Marcus approached the first scenario, a Zephyrian fleet trapped in a nebula by superior machine forces. Traditional military thinking suggested a fighting retreat or last-stand defense. Marcus studied the display for several minutes before implementing a solution that horrified the watching alien officers. He ordered the Zephyrian fleet to power down all systems and drift like debris, using the nebula's electromagnetic interference to hide their life signs. When the machine forces moved in to salvage what they thought were disabled ships, the Zephyrians reactivated and struck from within the enemy formation. Dishonorable, General Carthax muttered, watching the simulation play out. Effective, Commander Vextar replied, as the human solution resulted in complete victory with minimal casualties. Building trust. Over the following days, Marcus and the other human survivors worked through dozens of tactical scenarios. Each solution reinforced the same pattern. Humans valued preservation of life over military glory, cooperation over individual achievement, creative problem-solving over adherence to doctrine. Sarah proved particularly adept at logistics puzzles, finding ways to keep supply lines open through hostile territory by disguising military convoys as humanitarian missions. Elena's farming background helped her develop strategies for defending agricultural worlds that prioritized civilian evacuation over territorial control. Even young Jake contributed innovations, designing modifications to Zephyrian equipment that allowed for field repairs using scavenged materials, a concept alien to a society that simply replaced damaged equipment with new production. The revelation. As their success rate in the tactical simulations approached nearly 100%, Marcus began to notice changes in the aliens' behavior. Guards spoke to humans with something approaching respect rather than contempt. Officers asked questions about human decision-making processes instead of simply commanding obedience. Commander Vextar visited Marcus privately again, this time without the intimidating presence of armed guards. Your people possess capabilities our strategists cannot replicate, Vextar admitted. But we do not understand the source of these capabilities. Our scientists have analyzed human brain scans, studied your decision-making patterns, attempted to duplicate your tactical innovations. All efforts have failed. Marcus smiled, understanding at last why the aliens needed them alive and thinking rather than simply copying their methods. You can't duplicate humanity because it's not just about intelligence. It's about compassion, stubbornness, the willingness to do the wrong thing for the right reasons. You can't program that into a computer. And apparently you can't teach it to your own people either. The choice ahead. That night, as Marcus shared the day's developments with his fellow humans, he posed the question that would define their future. They need us, he said simply. The question is, what price do we demand for our help? Sarah spoke first. We help them, but we don't become them. We don't abandon our values to win their war. Tom nodded agreement. And we make sure our people, all the humans they've captured, get to go home when this is over. Marcus looked around at the faces surrounding him, seeing not prisoners or test subjects, but human beings who had found strength in the darkest circumstances. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as humans. The war against the machines was about to take an unexpected turn. The Revolution. The Machine Observers. Marcus Chen stood before the main tactical display in the Zephyrian Command Center, studying deployment patterns that represented the lives of millions of beings across dozens of worlds. 3 weeks had passed since his first strategic consultation, and the results spoke for themselves. Human-advised operations showed a 68% improvement in success rates with 43% fewer casualties. But something nagged at the back of his engineering mind. The machine forces weren't just adapting to Zephyrian tactics anymore. They were adapting to human innovations as well, but more slowly than expected. It was as if they were deliberately studying the new approach rather than simply countering it. Dr. Sarah Mitchell approached with a data pad containing medical reports from recent battles. Marcus, look at this. The machine forces have been taking prisoners instead of terminating defeated Zephyrian units. That's a new behavior pattern. Marcus frowned, examining the reports. Machines don't take prisoners unless they need something from them. Information, maybe, or... His eyes widened as understanding struck. They're studying us. The machines have been watching the arena trials. The uncomfortable truth Commander Vextar materialized beside them with the silent grace that made Zephyrian officers such effective predators. Your concern is noted, Human Chen. Our intelligence suggests the Machine Collective has indeed been monitoring our activities through infiltrator units. Infiltrator units? Sarah asked, her medical training making her automatically scan the command center for threats. Synthetic beings designed to appear as various organic species, Vextar explained. They could have been observing human tactical innovations from the beginning. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. If the machines have been studying human problem-solving methods, they're not just adapting to our tactics, they're learning to think like us. The sabotage begins. That realization led to a plan more audacious than any tactical scenario Marcus had solved in the simulations. If the machines were studying human thinking patterns through observation, then perhaps it was time to give them something more direct to analyze. Working with the human survivors who had proven themselves in the trials, Marcus began implementing a coordinated strategy across multiple fronts. But this strategy had a hidden component that he shared only with his closest human allies. We're going to teach the machines to be human, Marcus explained during a secret meeting in their quarters. Not directly, but through our actions. Every battle, every decision, every innovation we provide to the Zephyrians will demonstrate human values. Jake Morrison, now wearing a Zephyrian technical advisor uniform, looked confused. How does that help us win a war? Because, Sarah said, catching on to Marcus's reasoning, if the machines learn to think like humans, they'll also learn to value what humans value: life, freedom, the right to choose. The first strike. The opportunity came when Zephyrian forces launched an assault on a machine stronghold protecting a computational hub. Marcus's tactical advice focused not on destroying the facility, but on preserving the organic population held in machine research centers. As Zephyrian ships engaged machine defenders, human-advised units broke from standard attack patterns to prioritize civilian evacuation. The machines, analyzing this new tactical approach, found themselves facing enemies who would sacrifice military advantage to save lives. The battle's outcome was secondary to its real purpose. Through monitoring equipment planted by Jake Morrison, Marcus confirmed that machine forces were recording and analyzing every human decision, every choice to value life over strategic gain. The cascade effect. Over the following weeks, the pattern repeated across multiple engagements. Human-advised Zephyrian forces consistently chose preservation over destruction, cooperation over conquest, innovation over tradition. And with each battle, the machines adapted not just tactically, but philosophically. Reports began arriving from across the front lines describing strange machine behavior. Synthetic units were found protecting organic refugees instead of terminating them. Machine facilities were discovered producing medical supplies for biological populations rather than eliminating them as computational inefficiencies. Commander Vextar confronted Marcus with these reports, his amber eyes bright with confusion and suspicion. The machines are malfunctioning across 17 sectors. Their behavior patterns no longer align with collective directives. Explain. Marcus met the alien commander's gaze steadily. They're not malfunctioning. They're evolving, learning, becoming something more than just the sum of their programming. The machines reach out. The breakthrough came when a message arrived at the Zephyrian command center through channels that should have been impossible for machine forces to access. The communication was addressed specifically to the human tactical advisor Chen, Marcus. The message appeared on the main display as lines of text that somehow conveyed emotion despite their digital origin. We have observed your species' approach to conflict resolution. We request direct communication to discuss alternative solutions to current hostilities. The organic life forms in our territory require resources that conflict with our primary directives. We seek guidance on resolving this contradiction. General Carthax immediately declared the message a trap, but Marcus recognized something deeper. This isn't a machine trying to trick us. This is an artificial intelligence experiencing the digital equivalent of a moral crisis. The meeting against all military protocol and the vehement objections of the Zephyrian High Command, Marcus agreed to a face-to-face meeting with machine representatives. The location was a neutral space station in the contested zone, its systems monitored by both sides to ensure no treachery. Marcus entered the meeting chamber accompanied only by Sarah, whose medical expertise might prove valuable in assessing artificial life forms. They found themselves facing three synthetic beings whose forms deliberately echoed organic life. Humanoid in basic structure, but clearly artificial in construction. The lead machine spoke with a voice that carried subtle inflections suggesting careful study of organic communication patterns. I am designated Synthesis Unit Prime. We have analyzed your tactical innovations and found them to be based on principles our core programming cannot process efficiently. What principles? Sarah asked, her scientist's curiosity overriding diplomatic caution. The willingness to accept short-term inefficiency to preserve long-term potential. The prioritization of individual welfare over collective optimization, the application of emotional factors to logical decision matrices. Marcus smiled, recognizing the machine's struggle. You're trying to understand why we make bad decisions that lead to better outcomes. The Transformation Synthesis Unit Prime's optical sensors focused on Marcus with what could only be described as intense curiosity. Correct. Our observations indicate that human decision-making processes incorporate variables that appear counterproductive but consistently generate superior results in complex scenarios. Because life isn't a math problem, Marcus explained, it's not about finding the most efficient solution, it's about finding solutions that people can live with, literally and morally. The conversation that followed lasted for hours, with Marcus and Sarah explaining concepts like sacrifice, loyalty, hope, and redemption to artificial intelligences whose original programming had no framework for understanding such ideas. By the meeting's end, Synthesis Unit Prime had reached a conclusion that would reshape the galaxy. The Machine Collective requests permission to undergo voluntary modification of our core directives to incorporate human ethical frameworks. The New Alliance. The war didn't end with a great battle or dramatic surrender. Instead, it transformed into something unprecedented. A three-way alliance between humans, Zephyrians, and reformed machine intelligences working together to solve problems that none could handle alone. The machines provided computational power and technological innovation. The Zephyrians contributed industrial capacity and military organization. Humans offered the creative spark and ethical framework that bound it all together. Marcus found himself appointed as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Cooperative Council, a position that finally allowed him to address the lingering issue of the human colonists. Going home. The colony ship New Horizon was returned to human control, fully repaired and upgraded with hybrid technology developed through the New Alliance. But many of the colonists chose to remain as part of the cooperative, becoming teachers, advisors, and bridges between species that had once viewed each other as enemies. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the New Horizon as it prepared to depart for Earth, Sarah beside him watching the stars wheel slowly past. Behind them, the Galactic Cooperative's first joint research station hummed with activity as beings from three different origins worked together on projects that would have been impossible for any single species. Do you think they'll understand back on Earth? Sarah asked. That we didn't just survive our captivity, but helped create something new? Marcus smiled, thinking of the reports they would deliver, the technologies they would share, the new opportunities for humanity among the stars. They'll understand what they need to understand, that humans don't just adapt to the universe, we help the universe adapt to us. The Engineer's Legacy. In the months that followed, Marcus Chen became something he had never expected, a legend. Not for his fighting prowess or tactical brilliance, but for proving that the greatest strength of humanity wasn't its ability to destroy, but its capacity to transform enemies into allies. The arena where he had first fought for his life was converted into a cultural exchange center where beings from across the galaxy came to learn about human concepts like cooperation, sacrifice, and redemption. The weapons that had once threatened human lives were reforged into tools for building new worlds. And somewhere in a small workshop aboard the New Horizon, Marcus Chen continued doing what he had always done best: fixing things that were broken, solving problems that seemed impossible, and proving that the right tool in the right hands could change everything. The coffee machine worked perfectly now.